Hey, everybody. I know that I think I have one person who's joined us so far. If you have joined us, if you could go ahead and put your name in the chat box so that I know that you have joined us today and that I know that you've been here. That would be really helpful. I'm actually also going to, we're trying a new format that NHA wants us to use. So we're hoping that you are able to do that with us today. So feel free to, like I said, throw your name or information in the chat box so that we can make sure we get access to you today. And I have some stuff to share with you, and I'm glad I printed it because I don't think that I can share my screen on this, but that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go along. And if you have any questions or have any thing that you want to ask as we go through it, we'll go ahead and we'll put it in there. Hi guys, we missed you too. All right, so every year we have to talk about like how we're doing, what's going on academically, and just because we're in a year of COVID doesn't mean that we're not doing that. So we are, but the data looks a little bit different. The information looks a little bit different, but we need to still talk about it so we can say, hey, here's where we're at and here's where we're going with things. And then after I do the presentation, if you have any questions about anything else, guys, feel free to ask, okay? So some of you, before I get started, have asked about Mrs. Colbeck. As we know, her last day is on Friday. She was supposed to be here all week, but she fell and broke her foot and is actually going to be here tomorrow and Friday. She was out for the first couple of days because she can't walk, no weight bearing. So that's what happens when we don't slow down and take care of ourselves. So we were a little worried about her, but we know that she will be okay, and we'll go from there. So today we're going to talk about our school improvement data. And sadly, I just have to hold some stuff up. So you get to see this. So we have, I'm going to hold a thing behind it. So we have some school demographic data I want to go over with you. And so I know it's backwards, so I'm really sorry. So I'm just going to say it and then I'll show you the picture. So we have a pretty healthy mix of kiddos in our school. So we have currently a 3-year trend of 48% of our students who are African American, and it's pretty similar over the last 3 years. Really only a 2% increase of students who are African American, and that's 19% higher than the Taylor School District. Our white student population 3-year trend is 30% of our students, and that's actually 23% lower than the Taylor Public District. And then our multiracial students is at 12%, which is 5% higher than the traditional Taylor Public School District. So just some demographic data so you kind of know who we're servicing and where. I also wanted to talk a little bit about like the genders. So we're pretty evenly split and have been for many years. A little bit less girls than boys. So we have 49% of our student population, well, 48% of our student population are female, and then 52% of our student population are male. So just a little bit higher boy population than girls. And we also have really enrollment has pretty much remained steady. So this year, in the year of COVID, it's gone down a little bit. Young fives and kindergartners increased enrollment. First, second, and third grade have decreased by just a couple kids. Fourth grade's increased, and so has sixth and eighth, but fifth and seventh has gone down just a little bit. So we are a school that has exceeded our enrollment goal every year for the past 3 years. We are still, as of today, on 4/21, exceeding our goal for enrollment this year, and which is great news, right? The more people who are here, the more we can educate, and the better it can be. However, we do still have a couple open spots or seats in a few grade levels based on having more in one grade level than are required. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So our enrollment stays pretty steady. It stays pretty great. And I think it's because of the teachers and how well they do and how much they support everybody. One of the things that we thought we were going to see this year was an increase in our students experiencing homelessness or having any higher needs. And that is something that parents have to self-report. Like, we can't communicate. We're not going to go to your house and see if you're there. We're not going to see if you're doubled up, things like that. But there is an enrollment part that you are supposed to let us know, like, hey, we're doubled up because of X, Y, or Z, or, we have been homeless, or we are homeless, or we're experiencing that right now. So if that's something that's happening for you or your family, which we know that the state of Michigan has increased that this year just due to, the pandemic and things that are going on. If that's something that your family's experiencing, please let us know. There are additional support systems in place that we can help with. But we currently, and over the last 3 years, we're about 2% of our student population does experience homelessness. And then our EL population is at 4%. It's down 1% from the last 2 years. So it was at 5%, but now we're at 4%. So staying steady for our homeless kiddos, staying steady for our EL population, staying steady for our enrollment, staying steady for boys and girls enrollment. So consistency is what we're seeing within this data analysis. One of the other things that we look at every single year is the percentage of our students who are free or reduced lunch. And that also stayed pretty consistent and steady this year. So the students that are not eligible for free or reduced lunch is only about 31% at our school, which means that 69% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch every year. 60% are actually free, and then 9%, if you break it down a little bit more, are reduced. And that is real steady across the board. I think we see a 1% increase for the number total percentage this year, but it was the same as 2 years ago. So like I said, consistent and steady. The percentage of students who have IEPs is at about 12% as well, which I think it's gonna be a broken record a little bit. It's pretty consistent with what it's been for the last 3 years. So very consistent data, very consistent numbers, very consistent enrollment. So, it would be great if we could have some consistent academic results too, and we're going to get to that as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about teacher turnover as well, which we know this year has been a little bit higher than years past. And so 2 years ago in 2018, 2019, we only had 0.6% of our staff turnover, which is pretty low. And then the year after that, we had 0.8%. And then this year, we've had 1.2% of our staff turnover. I'm sorry. So that's instructional time loss. This year, in years past, we've had about 16% staff turnover. This year, we've had 17%. And I need to be real honest, though, that it doesn't take into account the most recent turnover that we've had. So there's, 3 more people that would be added to this. We have 96% of our staff who are fully certified teachers, though we have 2 that are not, and they are finishing up an alternative certification program or have a year-long teaching permit. If your child is in one of those classrooms, you would know who it is because we have to communicate that with you. So you are, all of those people who are on those are set to graduate next week or over the summer. So then we should, if we don't have any adjustments or new staff hired in, then we should have 100% of our staff have that highly qualified status. One of the other things we take a look at is the total number of years teaching for the staff that we have. And the most interesting piece for me is we know that typically when charter schools come into existence, we get those newer teachers, the ones that just graduate, the ones that are either really brand new or the ones that have taught for a long time and maybe they're ready for another transition, or maybe those second careers. So we have currently in our staff 12 of our staff members who are brand new or up to 3 years of teaching experience, 18 of our teachers who have 4 to 8 years of teaching experience, 9 of them who have 9 to 14, and then 2 of them who have 15 plus years of teaching experience. So we have kind of that 4 to 8 year experience, and that's 0 to 3. Those are our biggest demographic of teachers. And we know that teachers learn a lot their first couple of years teaching. So we work really hard to do a lot of really intentional onboarding, make sure we do a lot of intentional mentoring with our new teachers so that they have everything they need to be successful as they transition into not a brand new baby teacher. Our staff engagement has been pretty steady and pretty high up until the year of COVID. We know that it's been a challenging year for families. We know that it's been a challenging year for staff, and it's been a challenging year for kids. And so, some of the things that I think are outside of the control of people who work within the schools, those are some of the things that we're struggling with as a staff. Just really being aware of what's happening, and feeling comfortable. So things that you're struggling with, things that we've talked about already, just with the year of COVID, that's kind of where we're at with those kinds of things. Parent engagement is pretty similar as well. So we don't have data from last year, and we don't have the data from this year yet, but we have stayed pretty steady or gone down just a little bit in some of those key pieces. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about and get some feedback on is the communication piece. So school communication is effective and timely. Only 67% of our families think that. And so I guess my question is, what else would you like? In what different way? How would you like to receive the information? Is it from the leadership team that you feel like it's not effective and timely, or is it from the classroom teachers that you feel like it's not effective and timely? If you have any thoughts or ideas on that, if you could add that piece to the chat box, that would be really helpful in gathering some information on how we can provide some more effective and timely communication to you. So that's one of the key pieces that we're looking at, because if you don't know what's going on, everything kind of gets a little bit worse as you go along. So we want to make sure that you have that. And then every year, we take a look at parent complaints, right? So we have a corporate office. They take phone calls from our families who are feeling struggling. Yeah, I was surprised by that too, Miss Dean. But they're struggling, or maybe not getting the answers that they want from me. Or maybe don't know who to come to in the building to talk through something. So there's a phone number at corporate that you can call. And so last year we had 3 parent complaints, which is pretty consistent, right? The year before we had 8, and then the year before that we had 5. So this year I think we're sitting at 1 parent complaint for what's been going on this year. So not bad. I feel pretty good about that, actually. But, some of the things that people are concerned about was school personnel. Like maybe they were frustrated with something that happened with a teacher or a staff member, or school environment and safety. There was questions or concerns about discipline. People were questioning about. And then one time in the last 3 years, somebody complained about parent involvement opportunities. So just giving you an overview of kind of some of the pieces of the puzzle that people were frustrated about. And so what happens after parent complaints occur, our corporate office reaches out to me, and I reach out to those parents, and we try to figure out what's going on, how we can resolve it, and how we can work together to make it better for everyone. And sometimes what happens is that we agree to disagree, but figure out a healthy solution for next time. Sometimes what happens is it's brought to my attention for the first time, and we're able to solve it or handle it and move forward. And then sometimes what happens is that we can't find a resolve, and some parents think that this may no longer be the right school for them, and that's okay. It's a choice. Just like I choose where to put my 3 kids, all of our families have a choice to make the best choice for them personally and for their kids personally. So it's really helpful, I think, that we have this opportunity, and we do circle back around and talk to families about it. But I also think it's great that as a parent, we have choices on where we send our kiddos. We hope that your choice is here, but we also understand that if this is not what is best for your child, that you would choose something else. Ms. Ferguson said that, hey, she personally wishes that virtual parents had different communication from in-person students. Valid. I think that's probably really good information to have. And I appreciate that feedback. So thank you for that. We can definitely consider that as we move forward. And if we if we have to do virtual next year, we'll see what the state says. That might be something that we can implement as we move forward within that. So thank you for that feedback, because there's a lot of different stuff that you guys get, or stuff that maybe you don't need to plow through in my newsletters, so that you can have that information. So good feedback, Ms. Ferguson. Thank you very much. So one of the things that we also look at is student behavior. We know that sometimes our kiddos come to us and they struggle to make good choices. And we know that sometimes we have to work through some things with them and help them along the way. And so we look at the number of suspensions that we have, the number of behavior support plans that we have, and then we also look at the average behavior events per student to see if it's a large percentage, like, hey, is each kid getting like written up 4 or 5 times a year? If so, like, we got to work on our system. What's happening here? Or are we having a really high increase in suspensions with a certain population of kiddos? If so, let's take a look at how are we handling those things, and are we handling them equitably between different genders, different races, and so on. So that's something that we take a look at multiple times a year. The leadership team looks at that pretty consistently, almost weekly in our admin meetings. And then we identify any areas for opportunities for growth and coaching and work with our school social work team and really kind of get it out there of like talking to teachers, talking to students, and working together alongside each other. So in 2018, 2019, we had a total of 202 days of suspension. 1920, we had a total of 265 days of suspension. And then so far this year, we have 21. And so clearly it's a little bit different, right? People are not here every day, right? So we have a lot of virtual kiddos, less than half, but we do still have virtual kiddos. And then we also have other things in place that, kids can't really go near each other or touch each other or be physical like that. So it gives us a chance to spread them out, have more of an opportunity to have that safety net in place, if you will, or that division in place. Ms. Ferguson, I'm going to touch base on that in just a second. Let me finish this thought. So I think it's really important to do that. So the behavior plans are things that we put in place to support students. So they're proactive in nature. Once a student hits, though, a certain threshold of like level 2 or 3, like kind of persistent pieces of the puzzle, we work through that with them and then identify what is it that they really struggle with, and then create a plan for success for them and proactively plan for things to replace those behaviors. And so 2 years ago, we had 21 of those plans in place. And then the year before we had 4, and this year we have 0. We have 1 in the works. But other than that, kiddos are doing a really great job. Behaviors are really down this year. And then we're only at our highest, we were at 2.9 behaviors per kiddo, per average. So Ms. Ferguson says she thinks it should be consistent across the board that a parent is communicated with before a student is written up, versus just receiving an email at the end of the day. So there's multiple levels of behaviors. So level 2 is you had a warning, you didn't listen, and now I got to put it in a written reminder, right? Level 3 is you had a warning, you didn't listen. We talked about it, it still didn't change. Now we have to put it in written format. Both of those things are handled by a classroom teacher or the staff that's dealing with that individual student. Any of those pieces, those are just kind of automatic, they're an FYI, right? It would be like it was a note written in a planner if we didn't have that system. And those behaviors have an option to click a button that say, send an email to parents at the end of the day, because they're just kind of those, hey, just as a reminder, or hey, just so you know, kind of thing. If it's something that's a level 5 behavior or something that could be suspendable, or is, hey, you got to go talk to an admin member, you get a personal phone call from us. We know that teachers sometimes can't stop what they're doing in the middle of the day. We don't want them to interrupt their instruction and make a phone call. We'd love them to be able to do that, but they have to teach. And so they are able to check that option to send an email. So if it's something that they have to leave their physical classroom, speak to an administrator in their office, you get a phone call from us. You don't get it sent to you in an email at the end of the day, you get a phone call. If it's something that is handled in classroom and is not like persistently done, it's just something that's done and reminders are necessary, then that is handled typically by sending an email at the end of the day. So I hear you. So we kind of have a combination of both of those, Ms. Ferguson. I hope that helps kind of divide it a little bit and explain it. but I understand your desire to have that. Some parents don't check their emails every day. I don't know if I would if I wasn't working in a school. So I think it's important to make sure that it is communicated with parents as well. You're right. One of the things that we've been working on, and I think is important to recognize, is that our boys are receiving a little over double the amount of write-ups that our girls are receiving. And I think that, and it's been consistent, no matter how many we have over the last 3 years, it's pretty consistent that our boys receive majority of the write-ups in our school. However, they're about the same percentage of population of our girls. So we know that that's something that is a focus area for us, and that's something that we're working on as a school community. So it's just something that we keep on our radar as well. If a female student did this, would they get the same consequence that a male student did this? And if not, let's talk about why and which consequence is really the appropriate one. Are we going too hard on the boys? Are we not going hard enough on the girls? What's really happening here? So we're really disaggregating that and taking a look at that and having those intentional and maybe sometimes difficult conversations about it. But it's really important for us to be able to do that and to be honest with ourselves when we are. We know that our 6th through 8th grade wing has the most write-ups of any wing, so K2, 3, 5, and 6, 8, and they do consistently. We know that 6th grade kind of is a big shifting year for our kids. They're transitioning to 3 or 4 different teachers every day. They're learning how to behave and be able to transition in a hallway. So a lot of new expectations happen in middle school, which means a lot of changes happen for kiddos. And let's be honest, puberty happens too. So they're really struggling with a lot of stuff. And our 6th grade teachers work hard to try to, I don't want to say rein it in, but give them opportunities to show success. And when not, they give them those reminders and they document it as well. So in case we see that there's repeatedly something that they struggle with, we can adjust that and give them a behavior support plan. Or if we need to, as a whole wing, talk about, okay, a group of our kids are really struggling with this. How can we help reteach this expectation? So middle school has the most write-ups. That typically is the case for most of our schools, but that's just kind of consistent across the board for the last 3 years. So our attendance. So we've talked about attendance quite a bit the last trimester. We're working on increasing our average attendance to 95% and honoring those kiddos who do get there. So that's been really great. One of the pieces of our puzzle is that, as of right now, we're at 93.1%, I believe, year-to-date average attendance. And that's only 0.4% away from where we were pre-pandemic. And I think that's pretty huge. We have experienced in a lot of our schools a real decrease in really engagement, especially from our virtual kiddos and coming to school. So to be only like 0.5% away from where we were at prior to our pandemic, I think is huge. The problem we have is that when they're not there, they're not learning. And when they're not learning, they continue to have gaps or holes in their academics. And so we really need to increase that. And our goal will continue to be to get to that 95%, which means like 1 day absent per kid per month. So it's really important to do that. We have this year so far, 23% of our students are chronically absent, meaning they have 8 or more absences. 13% of our students had 5 to 7% absences. And currently 21% of our students have perfect attendance. And that is higher than it's ever been, the 21%. And our chronic absenteeism is lower than it's ever been as well. And I think it's because kids do have that option to log on at home and to be virtual. So I think that's helpful. We're going to talk a little bit about some academic data now. So we talked about behavior and enrollment and attendance pieces. So now let's loop it or circle back around and talk about some information about academics. So we take a numeracy data and K1-2, and our students who are proficient, or the percentage of students who are proficient in kindergarten, are 59%. First grade is 75%, and then second grade is 73%. So we see that, in kindergarten, obviously, they're coming in fresh and they're brand new, and maybe this is the first time they've been in school years or ever. So we really need to make sure that we take care of growing them, and our kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers do a great job. So that's this year for fall of 2020. So in comparison, we had a lot less. Honestly, that happened before. So we're really excited about the distribution of it and how we're doing with that. Ms. Williams, I'll get to your question in just a second. And I want to then talk about our interim, because our K2 takes numeracy, but 3-8 takes our interims. And so, guys, interims are really created and designed to give us an idea on how our kids are going to do on MSTEP. So it's really a standardized assessment that NHA created that breaks down kind of the stepping stones for end of year proficiency and what they anticipate the MSTEP test to look like. And these interim tests are created to see how students are doing intermittently throughout the school year. And it gives us an opportunity to take a look at where they should be. Here's what it's being assessed at this point in the year. We need to backwards plan to figure out what we need to do. And then once we take these assessments, we take a look at the data and we respond to it by reteaching or teaching in a different way or giving some adjustments to it so that we can make sure that we're meeting those kiddos' needs. So this year in our students, let's be honest, are struggling. We struggle because we missed a lot of instruction thanks to COVID, from March until the end of last year. And then it's been a little bit of a different year this year as well. So we have a little bit of work to do. Overall, for interim 1 and 2, we're at 26% proficient for language arts, and then 41% proficient in math. I will tell you that we increased our proficiency overall from interim 1 to interim 2 in ELA and in mathematics. So we're seeing growth from interim 1 to interim 2. So our anticipation is that we'll see some growth for MSTEP as well, which we're currently taking. So state proficiency overall, we haven't had an MSTEP data in a couple of years. So this will be really new for us this year again. And because we're expected to bring every kid in person to take it, and some families are choosing not to, which is your choice and it's okay. We still think that there's going to be some skewed or really not as realistic data as we normally would have. But that's okay. It's important to still get it because we need to know where we're at and where we need to go from there. And so what we've seen is from 2018 to 2019, those 2 school years, we stayed the same in math proficiency at 36%, but we decreased from 46% to 41% in ELA or for reading. So consistent for math, a little decrease in reading, and our MSTEP or our interim data is showing a little bit of a different message this year. So we're anticipating that we might increase in both just a little bit as well. And then I'm going to go over the NWA results overall, and then I'll get back to your question, Ms. Williams. So for NWA, we do a really nice job on growth. So growing the kids, here's where they start and here's where we need them to be, right? But the problem we have, and I'm using my hands a lot, so sorry about that. But the problem what we're having is here's where some of them start, but here's where they should be. And we're getting them to like here, right? But really by the start of the year, they should be here sometimes and then get to here. So what we notice is that our kiddos who are coming in 2 or more grade levels behind are really, really struggling to get caught up fast. And it takes some time, right? They didn't miss it all in 1 year, so it doesn't catch up typically in 1 year. And so when our kids are younger, K2, they can really move really quickly and gain that knowledge that they maybe missed or plug the holes that they have. But as they get older and into the upper elementary middle school, they typically, if they are 2 years behind, have a lot of pieces that are missing. And our job is to then identify what's missing and kind of plug those holes and fill those gaps so that we can then get them back up to proficiency. So we do a really good job, more than more than 50%, we grow them where they need to be. But for proficiency, they don't always get there. So we do a better job with growth than we do proficiency. And it a lot of times aligns to where we started and how far we need to get there. So if a kid's 2 years behind, they need to make a minimum of 2 years worth of growth in 1 year to meet that proficiency. But they don't need to make 2 years worth of growth in 1 year to meet that growth goal. So just so you know, that's kind of how it's divided and looked at. So we look at both of those pieces in order to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the kiddos and getting where we need to be. So all of that stuff goes into, well, what do we do now? And how do we get there? And what are some next steps? So we have two pieces of the puzzle that we're going to focus on for next year. Piece one is math and instruction. Our goal will be to increase student proficiency on standardized assessments by 6% in each grade level. And then the second goal that we're going to have is to increase our attendance and rate. So our average daily attendance, we want to increase 1.9% to get us up to 95%. And we will have some strategies along the way. We'll roll those out as we roll out the upcoming school year. But those are our two main goals: increase that math proficiency and really get our kiddos here and hitting that 95% attendance rate. So all of that was kind of pulled out of the data and the analysis, and we have to have one academic goal and one non-academic goal to get us where we need to be. So those are the two that the school improvement team chose to really focus on and be intentional on as we move forward into next year. So Ms. Williams asked a question: what about if the school calls and you miss the call, return the call, only be told to send email to the child's teacher? Is it a better policy to see what is going on if you miss a call? Like, yeah, probably. So for attendance, if your child's not here, it's supposed to be in writing. That's what our handbook says. So shooting an email to Mrs. Sermon in the front office or shooting an email to your child's teacher, those are the two best options. If you're at home and your kiddos are at home with you and you miss a call from the school, we're going to leave a voicemail. So we're just going to ask that you listen to that, because when we send voice messages out, we send them to everybody. And if people say, oh, I just missed a call from the school, but don't listen to the voicemail, I want you to know, like, the 5 minutes after we send those out, we are literally, it's just ring, 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 ring. And honestly, if we just listen to the voicemail with that, it takes a lot of, oh, this is what happened. So we're trying to communicate it to you that way. If you could just make sure you listen to the voicemail, that's great. So if it's a different situation where you're not getting the school messenger voicemail, and it's just somebody's calling you and you missed a call, yeah, it would be great if we could ask, hey, what's going on? Let me see what's happening. If the child is calling from the classroom, that's the hard piece for us, because then we at the front office don't know. So we typically, in a normal non-COVID year, say, hey, anybody that calls, they need to call from the office, right? We typically have a student phone, so we know what's going on, and then we can relay the message to parents. This year, we don't have a student phone because everybody can't touch everybody's stuff. So the kids are calling from the classroom. And we ask the teachers to send us an email or let us know when they call, but sometimes it's lost in the translation. So we ask the kids all the time, leave a voicemail for your parent, whoever picks up. So if your mailbox is full, check that, moms and dads. If not, and your kid doesn't leave a voicemail, that is frustrating, because then you worry. So we want to make sure that they do that. So it's definitely something that I can shoot another email out to the staff and say, hey, as a reminder, if you have a parent, if you have a kid call home, these things need to happen. Leave a voicemail, let the office know why you called and when you called, and if you're expecting a phone call back. So I can definitely do that and send a reminder out. It's kind of scary if things are happening and you don't know about it. So thank you for bringing that up and asking that question. It's helpful for us with that. So thank you for that. So it's 4:33, and I've gone through all of my pieces of the puzzle for you today. Does anybody have any other questions? You're welcome, Ms. Williams. Does anybody have any other questions for me that they would like to ask while you have me on for the next couple minutes? And I'm going to take a little sip of my beverage while you think, and I'll give you some appropriate wait time. We do offer tutoring. This year we offered tutoring the second half of the school year. It was all virtual. And so we gave the students the option of joining It's invite only based on needs of students and the amount of staff that we have available to do so. So we do offer tutoring. We will be offering tutoring again next year, full year though next year. What are the role of the deans? So the deans are in essence an assistant principal overseeing their wing. They deal with behaviors, they deal with observations of teachers, coaching of our teachers. They provide feedback. They build relationships with kids. They're the first line of defense. They can't see you, but hi, Connor. So they're the first line of defense to make sure that families know what's going on. We have a dean model so that we can build some stronger and better relationships with families. So we have over 800 kids. We have 500 plus households in our school. And I would love to be able to say, I know every single family and I can connect faces with each other and go from there. But it's a little bit more challenging. So it gives us an opportunity to have pockets of relational capacity and to grow them and to really have those 3 years together before they move on to that next administrator and to that next wing. So really that's the dean. So Ms. Ferguson, so we've had a lot of dean transitions this year. So Mrs. Colbeck is currently our second grade dean, but her last day with us is actually going to be this Friday. And so we are working on having Mrs. Huey is actually going to be the interim dean for K through 2. I know that she communicated that with her families. I'll be sending that information out in my newsletter this week, but Mrs. Huey is currently our interim dean for K2. So enrollment for summer school. So the great news is that any kid can participate and there will be summer learning this year. They're working on some final plans for it where there's going to be a fully virtual option like, hey, put your computers away. Here's a workbook for you. And it's going to be one of those that we sent out similar to when we went into pandemic mode in March when you got the NHA created book. That's going to be, hey, anybody who wants it, you can have that. That's option number one. Another option will be, come on in and we're going to do some learning. And the draft plan, if you will be to have an ELA and math block in the morning. And then if you're an in-person learner, the goal is to have some like fun elective stuff in the afternoon after we serve lunch. We're trying to get a little bit more comfort level and a little bit more let's say fun back into the school, right? Because it's been really hard to do that with what we needed to do this year. And then the third option will be a virtual live streaming option. So, and that will only provide an ELA and math block. It won't have any of those fun elective times. So yes, there will be summer learning. Yes, all kids are going to be able to participate in it. As soon as it's finalized, we'll be communicating the information out so that you can then say, hey, I really want my kid to be in person, or I want my kid virtual, or nope, we're going to put the computer away and we're going to go for this. So that's where we're at. You're welcome, Ms. Ferguson. Appreciate you too. Any other questions about any of those things or anything else that you would like to ask me before we sign off today? Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys for joining us. I hope that you stay warm with this crazy weather we're having, and I hope that you have a truly fantastic day. And we will see you at Driveline in the morning, or if not, we will hope to see you again soon. Have a great night, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.